again, resuming the threat of checkmate. So g6 has to be played. And now we think, which way do we sacrifice? Hello everybody, my name is Emil Stefanov, International Master, and in this video, I will walk you through weekly scenario number 15 in Nocti. Let's get started. As always, make sure to first practice the position for yourself before you actually go through the walkthrough. Now, let's dive into the position. In this week, we're going to be talking about the isolated queen pawn. Whenever you hear the term IQP, isolated queen pawn, think about three things in total. First of all, if there are less pieces on the chessboard, then that pawn will most likely be a weakness that you're going to have to defend with all your pieces. Number two, because of this pawn, if there are more pieces on the chessboard, such as this scenario, attacking the c5 and e5 squares is beautiful and amazing because we can place our pieces on those squares and the pawn is going to reinforce them. In case that they are traded on those squares, the pawn is no longer going to be an isolated pawn, and instead it's going to be actually a powerful pawn in the opponent's camp. So, as you can see here, we're utilizing the e5 square, the knight is well guarded, and the knight also attacks a lot of key squares in the opponent's camp. And then, finally, number three, if you see an IQP, try to attack the opponent's king with everything you got. So, in this situation, we can clearly see that white is doing that. The bishop on b1, actually beautifully placed, attacking the h7 pawn, as you can see on this diagonal. The queen on h4 also reinforces the attack on the h7 pawn, and also puts some pressure on this diagonal as well, the h4 d8 diagonal. Of course, our knight, already mentioned, it is looking pretty beautiful in the center, and we have both rooks already active. Both rooks are already active on the c and e files. So this is looking quite good for all of our pieces. The only piece that is not so active is the bishop on e3. So that leads me to our first move, which is bishop g5, attacking the knight on f6, in turn threatening checkmate. So as you can see, Nocti had to block checkmate by playing pawn to g6. But now we get to ask ourselves, hold up, there is definite tension with the queen and the bishop on the f6 knight. So let's go ahead and punish Nocti for this move g6. Obviously, Nocti had to defend checkmate. The other move was h6. Now with g6, we're going to take knight takes d7. As you can see, it's a great move, and it is indeed a great move because, well, the bishop on d7 is just going to be a free piece. If queen takes d7, then the knight is a free piece. Well, what about knight takes d7? Then the bishop on e7 is hanging. So indeed, g6 is not the best move. After this, we just get to have a free piece. So after bishop f6, we're going to have queen takes f6. And the rest of the game, it's always easier to play when you have an extra piece. Go ahead and give a check there. So, yep, there we go. Check and mate. There we have it. Checkmate. So now let's go back into the starting position. Why is it that white has an advantage in this position? It mainly has to do with the fact that black has lost a lot of tempos. Usually in these positions, the bishop is already on b7 or potentially on d5 on the long diagonal. This rook by now is usually on c8 or c7, looking to defend the 7th rank or just make trades along the c file. So black is down a few tempos. That's why in this position, when we start with bishop g5, we are attacking the knight. And as we saw, g6 was quite an easy move to deal with. It was knight takes d7 and bishop takes f6. So let's go ahead and see if Nocti plays against bishop g5, h6. Alrighty, in this situation, we're hoping Nocti after bishop g5 plays h6, so we can demonstrate what we can do against that. Bishop g5, And let's see, h5, that's an interesting move. Not even h6. Against h6, we would have actually taken on h6 and sacrificed the bishop, but open up Nocti's king as much as possible. So here, this does seem like a free pawn to me. So I'm going to take on f6 and going to take on h5. Again, resuming the threat of checkmate. So g6 has to be played. And now we think, which way do we sacrifice? I think we sacrifice knight takes g6 purely because we want to keep our b1 bishop. That is a heck of a bishop, being able to help us checkmate the opponent king all the way from b1. If we sacrifice it, then the knight is not as useful. It's powerful, but it's kind of in the way of our rook maybe. Better is to take knight takes g6. Again, threatening checkmate with discover check. So f takes g6, queen takes g6, and now if king h8, simply queen h7 checkmate. So bishop to g7 was played, but now we play queen to h7. And now we consider, what do we do? There's a potential for a rook lift. We gotta mention that. There's a potential for a rook lift already. We could try to play queen h5 check, try to trick Nocti into going king g8, which would eventually lead into a forced checkmate, but I'm assuming Nocti will play king e7. So we could start with a check purely because we're forcing the king onto f6, which will be blocking the queen's pathway. So I quite like that. Let's start with bishop g6, and then let's go ahead and play rook c3. There's also rook e3, but I'm assuming the rook here is more useful. So there you go, rook c3, great move. And rook g8. Okay, let's go ahead and give a check. And yeah, actually we could just regain our bishop. Oh, rook h8 afterwards. That's quite tricky by Nocti. Yeah, that's quite tricky. Now, we would lose the queen there. Actually, we will only lose an exchange because we could play rook takes d7. But do we have anything better? Always think about it. Do you have anything better in this position? And we could play a check, which will force the king to d6, only square. And then follow it up with another check. And then if it goes back to e7, then we could... Oh, this is very nice. We could do a small little ladder, queen g5, king d6, back the second time, and then queen c5. That will be checkmate. That is quite nice. So if we start with queen h4, king d6, queen f4, Nocti will have to play king c6. This is hunting the king all the way from g8, hunting it all the way onto the queen side, but succeeding indeed. I think we're going to succeed. Yeah, queen h4. The hunt has begun. Let's go. Queen h4 check. So you can see a good move. And king d6. Queen to... Ooh, queen to f4. We forgot to think about e5. But that does open up the position even more. Yeah, actually we forgot about this move. It will block our rook. But we still have checkmating capabilities. So we'll still go queen f4. As you can see, good move. e5 was played. Okay, let's think about it. So we could take... Wish I could take like that. D takes e5 check. We could do that. Wow, rook e5 also looks quite interesting because we are forcing a checkmate in a way if it is taken. I quite like that. That is a checkmate. Rook e5, very interesting move. I quite like it, to be honest, but I think either one wins. d5 also should win simply because king e7, there's queen f7 checkmate, and if king c7, at the very least, what I saw is we play e6 and we regain our bishop and we have 3 extra pawns. But I mean, surely there's even more. So we'll give the check, discover check. So attack the bishop. Okay, bishop e5. Nocti is just trying to see if I was pre-moving any of my moves. But of course, we'll take queen e5 and checkmate is almost there. Let's see, e takes d7. That will come with a check. And then it's just about figuring out the fastest way to do it. I believe rook c1 should be it. Give a check, force, oh, maybe it was rook c3. Either way, we can see that there's a check over here, queen e7, and then we'll play rook d3, and that indeed will be checkmate. So there you have it. That's how you do it. In your practice games against Nocti, make sure to start with bishop g5. That is the best move. You are putting pressure on the knight, and you are attacking the h7 pawn. And then, don't be afraid to sacrifice one of your pieces for the pawns in front of the enemy's king. And then don't forget to rook lift. You have that opportunity to add extra pieces into the attack. So make sure to do that. And good luck in your games. See you in the next one.